The stars had always been seen as a promise. For centuries, the galaxy looked to the Galactic Council as guardians of peace and order. They spoke of justice, fairness, and unity. To the smaller worlds, they were protectors. To young civilizations, they were mentors. And to humanity, they were supposed to be allies. But the truth was darker. Behind closed doors, the Council feared humanity. They watched Earth grow from a struggling world into a power that could not be ignored. In just a few hundred years, humans had gone from touching the moon to building colonies across systems. Their ships grew larger, their technology sharper, and their spirit unbroken. The Council, old and arrogant, whispered among themselves, "Humanity rises too fast. They will one day challenge us." So a plan was made. It began with lies. The Council spread rumors that humans had broken treaties, stolen technology, and attacked neutral ships. No evidence was ever shown, but the words echoed across the stars. Worlds that once traded with Earth began to hesitate. Merchants stopped shipments. Allies turned silent. Humanity found itself slowly cut off, not by warships, but by whispers. At first, Earth's leaders believed it was a mistake. Ambassadors were sent to the Council. Speeches were made, begging for truth to prevail. But in the shining halls of the Council chamber, humanity's voice was silenced. Every word they spoke was twisted. Every plea was ignored. The Council's judgment was already written. The betrayal grew sharper when sanctions began. Colonies on the edge of human space suddenly found their supplies blocked. Fuel shipments vanished. Medical convoys were turned back. Alien patrols began scanning human ships as if they were criminals. Even the great stations orbiting Earth reported shortages. Factories slowed, families suffered, and still, humanity was told by the Council, "Obey, and peace will return." But peace was never the goal. One cold morning, without warning, fleets, bearing the Council's seal, arrived in orbit around human colonies. They called it containment. They said it was necessary for order. But in reality, it was a blockade, a silent war. The stars that once shone with freedom now felt like cages. Human commanders were forced to watch alien warships surround their homes. Soldiers could do nothing as families begged for food and medicine. Children stared at the sky, wondering why ships that promised peace now carried weapons aimed at them. And on Earth, the leaders of humanity sat in silence, the truth dawning on them like a blade pressed to the throat. The Council had betrayed them. Still, humanity did not strike first. Diplomats made one last effort. They demanded a fair hearing, a chance to show evidence that humanity had broken no law. The Council chamber was filled with representatives of 100 species, glowing banners, and the illusion of order. Humanity's ambassador stood tall, voice steady, speaking for billions. He spoke of trust, of treaties signed, of sacrifices made for peace. He asked only for truth. But when the Council leader rose, the chamber turned cold. With a voice like iron, the verdict was given. Humanity is guilty of aggression against the galaxy. Humanity is dangerous. For the safety of all, their growth must end. The chamber erupted with applause from those who had always feared Earth's rise. Humanity's ambassador stood frozen, unable to believe what he had heard. No evidence, no trial, only betrayal. When the news reached Earth, silence spread across the planet. People filled the streets, staring at the skies, anger burning where hope once lived. Colonists sent desperate messages. "We are cut off. We are starving. Where is justice?" But justice was gone. The Council had chosen fear over truth, chains over peace, and in that silence something changed within humanity. For generations, they had trusted the Council. They had believed in promises of unity. But now, the veil was torn away. They saw the truth. The Council was not a guardian, but a cage. They did not fear humanity because of crimes, but because of strength. They did not punish Earth for what it had done, but for what it could become. On that day, humanity made a quiet vow. If the Council feared their rise, then let that fear become real. If the Council sought to chain them, Then humanity would break those chains. They would not beg. They would not kneel. And though their fleets were small and their colonies weak, they had something the Council had forgotten. Fire. The fire of betrayal. The fire of survival. The fire of vengeance. Deep in hidden stations, commanders began whispering. Engineers began sketching designs that had long been forbidden. Soldiers sharpened their blades not for defense, but for war. Ordinary workers, who once built trade ships, now dreamed of warships. The galaxy had betrayed humanity, but humanity would not vanish quietly. Somewhere, in the quiet of Earth's night, a voice spoke words that would echo through generations. If they want fire, we will give them fire. And so, as the Council celebrated their victory of lies, a storm was already forming on Earth. A storm that would one day burn across the stars. The Council's deception was complete, but the story of their betrayal was only the beginning. Humanity had been pushed into darkness, and from that darkness they would rise with fire. The betrayal spread like poison. At first, humanity still hoped that some worlds would stand beside them. There had been allies, merchants who profited from human trade, explorers who traveled on human ships, and smaller species who admired Earth's courage. Many had called humans friends. But when the Council gave its verdict, those friends turned silent. One by one, the stars dimmed. Human freighters, once welcome in ports, were turned away. Colonists sent distress calls that went unanswered. Even those who had once shaken hands with Earth now refused to meet their eyes. The Council's word was law, and fear was stronger than loyalty. In the colonies, trust shattered. On Mars, children waited for medical supplies that never came. In the asteroid belts, miners sat in darkness, their fuel stations cut off. Whole families on the frontier rationed water, drinking less each day as alien patrols blocked their routes. And the blockade was not enough. Council fleets began to inspect human ships. What they truly meant was intimidation. Cargo was seized, crews were questioned, some never returned. A merchant captain, once proud of his trade route across the stars, came home with empty eyes, his ship torn apart, his voice broken. They called me a criminal for carrying food to my own people. Earth's leaders demanded answers, but the Council sent only silence. Humanity was not a partner anymore. It was a prisoner. The silence turned to anger. In the great cities of Earth, protests filled the streets. People marched with banners shouting to the sky, "We are not guilty, we will not starve." Mothers held children who cried for food. Fathers cursed the skies above, and soldiers sworn to defend peace clenched their fists as they watched. Alien fleets hover in orbit, their weapons ready, their message clear. You are less. You will obey. Even worse than the hunger, even worse than the fear, was the betrayal of trust. The Council had been seen as guardians of justice. Generations of humans had trusted them, had served alongside them, had believed in their words. Now those words were ashes. And nothing burns deeper than a broken promise. But where trust was broken, resolve began to grow. In hidden stations orbiting the outer planets, human commanders gathered. Not in large meetings. The Council watched too closely. Instead, they met in secret. Engineers disguised their projects as repairs. Scientists hid their notes behind false reports. Workers whispered of long nights building machines no one was supposed to build. It was not yet open war. Humanity was not ready. But the seed of defiance had been planted. Among the people, stories spread. Old men in the colonies spoke of Earth's history, how humanity had once been conquered, enslaved, and divided, how they had always risen again. We are children of struggle, they said, and struggle is where we are strongest. Young soldiers listened, engineers listened, even children listened. The more the Council tried to break them, the more humanity remembered who they were. And so quietly, a choice was made. No more begging. No more waiting for justice that would never come. Humanity would endure. Humanity would build. And when the time came, Humanity would rise in fire. Still, the road ahead was dark. In one colony, an entire farming settlement starved after shipments were cut. Their final message was short, carried across space before their signal went silent. Remember, us. In another, a station commander watched helplessly as council ships took his supplies. He whispered to his crew, "One day we will take them back." Earth itself felt the weight. Factories slowed, streets emptied, families counted every meal. But even as they suffered, even as the world felt caged, the human spirit refused to bend. Children drew pictures of ships breaking blockades. Workers carved words into walls. We endure. And in the silence of space, something began to take shape. Deep in the asteroid fields, hidden from alien eyes, engineers built ships not listed in any registry. At first, they were small, fast, sharp, designed to move unseen. But whispers spread that greater ships were being forged, ships that would one day answer the betrayal with vengeance. For now, the council laughed. They believed humanity was broken. They believed the blockade had crushed Earth's will. But they could not see what was happening in the shadows. They did not see the soldiers training in secret bunkers. They did not hear the engineers sketching weapons on scraps of paper. They did not know that every act of cruelty only made humanity stronger. The trust was gone. The bonds were broken. But in its place, humanity had found something else: unity. For the first time in centuries, Earth and her colonies spoke as one. From the deserts of Mars to the oceans of Earth, from the mining stations to the frontier worlds, one promise echoed, "We will not kneel, we will not break, and when the day comes, we will rise together." The council had shattered trust, but in that brokenness, they had built their own doom. The council believed the humans were broken. They saw empty markets, starving colonies, and silent trade routes. They saw a people surrounded, trapped by fleets too powerful to resist. And they smiled, thinking the story of humanity was ending. But in the shadows, a different story was being written. Hidden stations lit up in the asteroid belts. Abandoned mining platforms were turned into shipyards. On the moons of Saturn and beneath the oceans of Earth, secret forges came alive. Engineers who once built freighters now sketched designs for warships. Factories that once produced farming, tools now stamped out armor plating. It began small. At first, only a handful of ships were created. Fast, sharp, designed to slip past blockades. They were scouts, whispers of steel moving unseen through the dark. They carried messages, supplies, and hope across the scattered colonies. Each time one broke through the council's patrols, the people whispered, "We are not powerless." But this was only the beginning. Human engineers remembered every insult, every blockade, every cry of children left to starve. Their anger became fuel, their designs became fierce. Ships that were once graceful became brutal, built for endurance, for power, for war. They were not beautiful, they were not sleek, but they were strong. And slowly the hidden fleet began to grow, deep under Earth's crust, in massive caverns. Hollowed by old wars, machines thundered. Drones worked day and night unseen by orbiting eyes. Human scientists bent forbidden knowledge into weapons never approved by the Council. Plasma lances that could tear shields apart. Cannons with recoil, so great they shook entire stations. Armor thick enough to shrug off barrages. The Council had called humanity dangerous. Now, humanity decided to live up to that name. Meanwhile, across the colonies, training began. Soldiers drilled in underground bunkers, far from alien eyes. Children learned discipline alongside survival. Farmers, miners, and workers all picked up weapons because the line between civilian and soldier no longer existed. Every human became a defender, every hand prepared for the day of fire, and they did not train for defense. They trained for vengeance. Stories spread through the people like wildfire. On one colony, a group of miners built weapons from their own, machines swearing they would be the first to strike back. On another, pilots flew in secret through asteroid fields, mastering maneuvers that no council ship could follow. Even the children whispered stories of the Wrath Fleet, a ghost fleet being forged to one day answer the council with fire. No one knew exactly how many ships were being built. No one dared speak openly. but everyone believed. The silence of fear had turned into the silence of preparation. The galaxy, blind in its arrogance, did not notice. The Council saw Earth weakened, but they never saw the hidden shipyards. They heard humanity's silence, but they never heard the whispers of resistance. They thought they had crushed humanity's spirit, but they had only sharpened it. And deep in one secret station, the first dreadnought was born. It was a monster of steel and fury, larger than any human ship before it. Its hull was black, forged from metals pulled from the heart of dead asteroids. Its weapons glowed faintly, a promise of fire waiting to be unleashed. And when it powered on for the first time, the sound echoed through the station like thunder, shaking every heart that heard it. The engineers stood in silence, their eyes wide. Soldiers saluted. Workers wept. One man whispered the words that became a legend. "This is not just a ship. This is our answer." From that day forward, the Wrath Fleet was no longer rumor. It was real. But humanity was not foolish. They knew. They could not yet reveal their hand. For every ship built, another was hidden in silence. For every weapon tested, false reports covered the truth. Humanity became a shadow, striking quietly when needed, but never showing their full strength. Still, the fire grew. On the colonies, people who once despaired now whispered with hope. Children who had starved now dreamed of seeing human ships blaze through the skies. Old veterans who had once believed peace was possible now sharpened their blades waiting for the call. The Council had betrayed them. The galaxy had abandoned them. But from that betrayal, from that suffering, humanity had forged something the Council could never understand. Not just ships, not just weapons, but unity. For the first time in history, every human world, every colony, every station stood together. Borders vanished, rivalries disappeared. They were no longer divided by oceans, politics, or distance. They were one people, bound by betrayal and sharpened by fire. And together they built the Forge of Wrath. The galaxy still believed humanity was weak. But soon, the stars themselves would learn the truth. The Wrath Fleet was coming. The Council grew arrogant. Year after year they tightened the blockade around Earth. More patrols, more searches, more humiliation. They believed humanity had been broken, tamed, and silenced. To them, humans were a warning to others, a species that rose too fast, punished for its ambition. But arrogance blinds, and the blind never see the fire until it burns them. It began on the edge of the Sol system. A Council fleet of 20 warships hovered near Jupiter, enforcing the blockade. They expected nothing but silence. Another inspection, another routine patrol. But in the black of space, shadows moved. From the asteroid belt came a shape too large to be ignored. It was not on any registry. No report had ever mentioned it. At first, the Council thought it was debris, a broken station drifting. Then its engines came alive. The Wrath Fleet had awakened. The first dreadnought, humanity's monster of steel, cut through the dark. Its weapons glowed with blue fire. And, for a heartbeat, the Council fleet hesitated. This was not the Earth they remembered. This was something new, something forged in silence and rage. Then the dreadnought fired. The blast tore through the lead Council ship, cutting it in half with one strike. Flames and bodies scattered into the void. Before the others could react, more shadows revealed themselves. Dozens of human warships, heavy, brutal, and armed with weapons that no Council database recognized, emerged from hiding. The blockade was no longer a cage. It was a battlefield. The Council fired back. Energy bolts lit the void, but they shattered against human armor thicker than any the galaxy had seen. Missiles streaked forward, but human interceptors tore them apart before they reached their mark. And when the humans fired again, it was not defense, it was fury. One by one, the Council ships fell. Some tried to retreat, but fast human corvettes cut them down. Others begged for reinforcements, but their messages never reached command. The battle was short, brutal, final. When it ended, the asteroid belt burned with wreckage. And at the heart of it, the Wrath Fleet stood unharmed. The message was clear. Humanity had not been broken. Humanity had been reborn. News spread across the stars like wildfire. Colonists whispered the story in disbelief. Earth had destroyed a council fleet. Entire species who once looked away now trembled. Even those who hated humans could not ignore what had happened. But this was only the beginning. The Wrath fleet did not stay silent. They moved. Fast. Relentless. Colony by colony, they struck where the council was weakest. Human soldiers stormed blockades, liberated settlements, and gave food to the starving. Each victory was not just a battle won. It was a wound carved into the council's pride. And humanity carried no mercy. At Rigel Outpost, human marines boarded a council fortress station. Instead of surrendering, the defenders mocked them. The marines answered by tearing the fortress apart piece by piece, leaving the survivors alive only to spread the story. The humans are coming. At Vera Colony, where council patrols had executed human miners, the Wrath fleet struck with fire so fierce that the night sky burned for hours. The children of Vera watched from underground shelters, their eyes wide as the fleet above avenged their parents. When the battle ended, those children spoke a single word: justice. The galaxy began to fear. Council leaders shouted in panic. How had Earth built this fleet? Who had helped them? The truth, that humanity had done it alone, in silence under suffering, was more terrifying than any secret alliance. If humans could rise from betrayal with such fire, what else were they capable of? The Council tried to spin lies. They claimed humanity was dangerous, unstable, a threat to peace. A threat. But the lies rang hollow. Too many had seen the truth. The Council were not guardians of peace. They were tyrants who had betrayed their own promises. And the humans had become a warning to every world. Betrayal has a price, and still the Wrath fleet grew. For every Council ship destroyed, human engineers scavenged the wreckage, reforging alien steel into new weapons. For every battle won, more colonists joined the cause, bringing their skills, their anger, and their loyalty. The fire spread. Soon it was not just battles on the edge. Humanity's fleet reached deep into Council territory. They struck supply lines, crippled stations, shattered pride. Even the Council's great core worlds began to tremble as whispers spread. The humans are coming here next. And Earth, once blockaded, once starved, now stood proud. In the skies above, the Wrath fleet filled orbit, their hulls reflecting sunlight like blades. Children pointed upward with awe, soldiers saluted with pride. And leaders, once forced to beg for scraps, now spoke with iron in their voices. We do not beg. We do not kneel. We burn. The galaxy had thought humanity was a victim. Instead, humanity had become the flame. The galaxy had never seen such fire. The Wrath fleet spread across Council space like a storm. World after world felt its fury. Colonies that once mocked humanity now hid in silence, afraid that they too would taste Earth's fire. Trade routes collapsed. Council fleets scattered. Fear traveled faster than any ship. The Council gathered, in desperation. In the grand chamber of stars, once the center of unity, chaos reigned. Representatives shouted across the hall, their voices breaking with fear. Some demanded surrender, others begged for peace, and a few screamed for more war. But beneath the noise, a single truth grew heavier with each passing moment. Humanity was coming for them, and nothing could stop it. The Council, once proud and unshaken, now trembled. Their fleets had burned. Their lies had shattered. Their betrayal had been repaid in fire. And soon the humans would arrive at their gates. On Earth, the mood was different. For the first time in generations, there was unity. Every colony, every station, every settlement stood together. No longer divided by politics, no longer fighting over scraps. Humanity had been betrayed, but from that wound, they had forged something greater. They had become one people with one purpose, and that purpose was judgment. The Wrath fleet gathered in orbit above Earth, larger now than ever before. Hundreds of ships, each scarred by battle but stronger for it, waited in silence. The great Dreadnoughts led the way, their hulls black with vengeance. Fighters and bombers swarmed like predators around them. At their heart, commanders stood, ready, their voices steady, their eyes burning. It was not just a fleet. It was the hand of humanity, ready to strike. When the order came, the fleet moved. Thousands of engines roared in the void, and the stars themselves seemed to shiver. Across the galaxy, sensors lit up with their approach. The Council's spies sent frantic warnings, but no defense could be prepared in time. The humans were already here. The final battle began at the edge of the Council's home system. Defenses, stretched wide, fleets layered in formation, stations bristling with weapons. It was the greatest wall the Council had ever built, but against the Wrath fleet it was nothing more than kindling. The humans struck like fire from the heavens. Their dreadnoughts unleashed beams that cut through ships as if they were paper. Missiles streaked like falling stars, shattering stations, into burning fragments. Human fighters darted between enemy lines, tearing apart cruisers with brutal precision. The Council fought back. They screamed, they fired, they bled. But it was hopeless. For every human ship that fell, 10 Council vessels followed. For every defense raised, humanity's fury broke through. The sky above the Council's homeworld became an inferno of wreckage and flame. The battle did not last hours. It lasted minutes and then silence. The Council's fleets were gone. The defenses were ash. And above their capital world, the Wrath fleet stood unchallenged. The chamber of the Council fell into despair. Leaders wept. Some fled. Others begged for mercy. They had betrayed humanity once, believing Earth weak. Now, staring at the fleet above their skies, they saw the truth. Earth was not weak. Earth was the storm. The humans opened a channel. No long speech, no plea, no threats. A single voice spoke, steady and cold. You betrayed us. You starved our people. You thought humanity would kneel. But we do not kneel. We burn. And today, your judgment is fire. And the skies answered. Flames rained down. The Council's great towers crumbled. Their fleets turned to dust. Their legacy, built on lies and fear, was erased in the roar of humanity's vengeance. When the fire ended, the galaxy was silent. No one could deny what had happened. The Council, once untouchable, was gone. Their betrayal had been cleansed in flames, and in their place stood humanity, scarred, unyielding, and unbroken. The galaxy whispered in fear. Some saw humans as monsters, others as saviors, but all agreed on one truth. Humanity had become something greater than any species before, not victims, not outcasts, but judgment. The stars themselves seemed to carry the warning. Worlds far away, untouched by war, still felt it in their hearts. Never betray Earth again. On Earth, the people did not celebrate with joy. They stood in silence, staring at the fleet above, knowing what had been lost and what had been gained. They had avenged their dead, burned away their enemies, and shown the galaxy their true power. Humanity had answered betrayal with fire, and in that fire, they had written their place among the stars forever.